Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Vinny's Retro Review. Yes, I am a walking oxymoron tonight. I am wearing a Bills mask and a Boston Red Sox shirt because I'm missing both football and baseball. I'm missing sports in general, hockey. But we'll talk about that after. First, we're going to delve into November 20th, 1960. It's Thursday night, and it's time for the 60th anniversary of the Buffalo Bills' fourth victory. This one, perhaps more surprising than the previous three, as they beat it's 1960, the Los Angeles Chargers, who came in the game at 6-3, and the Bills were 3-6. And you say, well, that's only a 3-game difference. The Chargers, though, at the end of the season, were in the AFL Championship. The Bills beat the Oilers. They beat the Chargers. They beat both teams who would represent the AFL in its first inaugural championship games. The Buffalo Bills may not have won the championship in 1960, but they did represent them both. Now, from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, November 20th, 1960, here is how the game went. Buster Ramsey led his 3-6 Buffalo Bills against the 6-3 Los Angeles Chargers. In the first quarter, Richie Lucas caught a 17-yard pass from Tommy O'Connell, and the extra point was missed in the game. It was 6-0. Then, in the second quarter, Ben Agajanian hit a 31-yard field goal to cut the Bills' lead to 6-3. Ray Carlton then ran the ball in from 1 yard out. Billy Atkins hit the extra point, and the Bills led 13-6. Archie Matz returned an interception 20 yards for a touchdown. The extra point was again missed, and the Bills led 19-3 at the half. No scoring in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, Ray Carlton ran the ball in from 7 yards out. Billy Atkins hit the extra point, and it's 26-3 Buffalo. Then the domination concluded as Dan Chamberlain caught a 49-yard pass from Johnny Green. Again, no extra point. Bad day for kicking for the Bills. But the final score is Buffalo 32 and Los Angeles, as Coach Ramsey called it in the highlight film, 32-3. The game was played 62 degrees weather with 9-mile-per-hour wind. Your leaders for the Bills, your leading passer was Tommy O'Connell with only 92 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Your leading rusher was Carl Smith, 8 rushes, 24 yards. And your leading receiver was Dan Chamberlain, 2 catches, 66 yards, and the touchdown. For the Bills, Jack Kemp, yes, the future Buffalo Bill and future U.S. Senator and future U.S. or Vice Presidential candidate Jack Kemp led the Chargers with 189 yards passing. Your leading rusher was All-Pro Paul Lowe, 35 yards on 5 carries, and your leading receiver was Ralph Anderson, 109 yards on 7 carries. So Buffalo gets its fourth win with just a couple weeks to go, as this was week, it was week 11. They played a 14-game schedule with a bye, so that's where we stood there. Other games in the AFL that day, the Boston Patriots defeated the Dallas Texans 42-14, and the Houston Oilers beat the Denver Broncos 20-10. What was life like in America on November 20th, 1960? Well, folks, it was a lot different than it is today, that's for sure. Hold on. Okay. Let's go over some things. Other than the AFL games, here is what else was going on in the world. Oh, hold on. Somebody needed to join the club, but it was a little too late, unfortunately. Oops, what did I do? Oh, shoot. Okay. We went over the AFL scores. Pro wrestling, as everybody knows, I'm a pro wrestling fan. Pro wrestling in 1964 was much different. In fact, I can't seem to get... there wasn't any major events on that day. There was a big-time wrestling event in Canada. There was some matches in Germany and some matches in... but for whatever reason, I can't get it to come up. It keeps coming up with a thing saying broken link. I think I posted it wrong. Well, I looked at it earlier, and like I said, there wasn't anything really important going on that day. The WWF didn't have an event, so it is what it is. All right. TakeMeBack.to, a website that will tell you various things that are going on in the world on that day. It was Sunday, November 20th, 1960, under the sign of Scorpio. U.S. President was Dwight Eisenhower. Kennedy had been elected president, but he was president-elect. Famous people born on this day. Now, see if you know any of these. Mark Labrèche and Bruno Retailleau. The number one song in the world was Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles in the U.S. The number one song in the U.K. was It's Now or Never by Elvis. Let's take a look at what was in movie theaters. The Magnificent Seven, starring Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, Eli Wallach. Cinderfella would come out a couple days later, starring Jerry Lewis, Ed Wynn, Judith Anderson, Harry Silva. The Facts of Life, starring Bob Hope, Lucille Ball, Ruth Husty, and Don DeFore. And North to Alaska, starring John Wayne, Stuart Granger, Ernie Kovacs, and Fabian. Fabian. Oh, that is. Okay, famous deaths. Jacob Cohen, Hebrew poet and writer. I'm unfamiliar with his work. NFL scores on that day. We gave you the AFL earlier. The NFL. The Cleveland Browns lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers 14-10. The Detroit Lions lost to the Chicago Bears 28-7. The Los Angeles Rams defeated the Green Bay Packers 33-31. Philadelphia beat the New York Giants 17-10, and the 49ers beat the Cowboys 26-14. Okay, we did all that. Let's take a look at college football the day before on November 19th, looking at the top 25, as there's too many scores even back then to really go over much. Scrolling. Okay. Actually, on Friday, November 18th, number 14, Syracuse in Miami beat the Hurricanes 21-14. Number 18, Alabama over Tampa 34-6. It was on Saturday. Alabama was on Saturday, too. So on Saturday, number 7, Arkansas beat Texas Tech 34-6. Number 9, Auburn beat Florida State 57-21. It was number 2, Iowa over Notre Dame 28-0. Number 1, Missouri was upset by Kansas, unranked Kansas 23-7. Number 12, Michigan State beat Detroit Mercy 43-15. Number 4, Minnesota beat Wisconsin 26-7. Number 14, New Mexico State over Hardin-Simmons 40-3. Number 6, Duke lost by a point to North Carolina 7-6. Number 10, Ohio State over Michigan 7-0. Number 19, Oregon over Oregon State. No, I'm sorry, that was a tie. Oregon and Oregon State in the Civil War. Yes, 14-all. Number 13, Purdue beat Indiana 35-6. Number 14, Rice over TCU 23-0. Number 11, UCLA lost to USC 17-6. Number 5, Washington over Washington State in the Apple Cup 8-7. And in the game, number 14, Yale. Yes, Yale was ranked in the Division 1A because there was no such thing as 1A, 1AA. It was just major college football. Number 14, Yale beats Harvard 39-6. Well, that would have been a miserable game in my opinion. But I root for Harvard, so that is what it is. Basketball in the NBA on November 20th, 1960. Just a couple games on the docket, 2 to be precise. It was the Boston Celtics over the Cincinnati Royals, 120-103. Bob Cousy led the way with 23 points. The Los Angeles Lakers beat the Detroit Pistons 135-131, with Elgin Baylor leading for the Lakers with 52 points. In the Eastern Division, the Philadelphia Warriors are 11-4. They lead that division. And in the Western Division, the St. Louis Hawks, 9-4, lead that division. Basketball, much different back then. No Chicago team. I probably would have been rooting for the Syracuse Nationals. Personally, they're 4-7. Oh, that's division standings anyway. Hockey, the NHL, also a small league at the time. On November 20th, the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Boston Bruins 3-2. It was the Chicago Blackhawks, the Montreal Canadiens tying at 1, and the Detroit Red Wings beat the New York Rangers 4-3, as it was the original 6 days back then. Television. Television on that day. Let's take a look. On ABC at 7 p.m., The Wonderful World of Disney with a repeat of Mucho of Pop Warner Football, Part 1 and 2. 7:30 p.m., a brand new episode of The Maverick titled The Maverick Line. At 8:30 p.m., The Lawman, Samson the Great was the episode title. At 9 o'clock, The Rebel with Don Gringo, an episode. And a new episode of The Islanders at 9:30, Our Girl in Saigon. On CBS, they brought forth at 7 p.m. a new episode of Lassie with Visiting Colt. Then at 7:30, a new episode of Dennis the Menace, Henry, and Togetherness, the episode. No program listed for 8 or 8:30. At 9 o'clock, General Electric Theater with the episode titled The Playoff. And at 9:30, The Jack Benny Show with his guest, John Wayne. I don't know whose guest was John Wayne Show is the title of the episode. On NBC at 7 o'clock, they had the Hallmark Hall of Fame with the airing of Macbeth. At 8 o'clock, National Velvet with Crisis. And then at 8:30, the Tab Hunter Show with the episode Hot and Cold. And at 10 o'clock, the Loretta Young Show with Conditional Surrender. Okay, let's check out weather. Now, for these purposes, I'm going to be using where my father was at the time. November 20th, he would have been 7 years old. So let's go ahead and type in 12946 for the zip code. Let's find 1960, November, and 20. And the answer is for Lake Placid, New York on Sunday, November 20th. It was a low of 27 with a high of 48.9. Winter's in the air. No participation recorded. Wind speed 3.22 miles per hour average with a max speed of 10. And this was a maximum wind gust of 999 miles per hour. That means that it was a very hellish day, or they just don't have it reported correctly. And what is on YouTube? Well, actually, what is on Wikipedia? If you click in 1960, around any major events happening, and then we'll go to YouTube. Nothing. On the 15th of November, a Polaris missile is test launched from Cape Canaveral. On November 22nd, the United Nations supports the government of Joseph Kasavubu and Joseph Mobutu. Sorry if I get those names wrong, in the Republic of Congo. Oh, wow. Look, on November 24th, Wilt Chamberlain will get 55 rebounds in a game versus the Boston Celtics. That's a hell of a thing. Let's see. We already did the births and deaths. The election was on November 8th. It was a close race, but John F. Kennedy defeated Richard Nixon to become the second youngest man to serve as president of the United States at the time. Yeah. Okay, now YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you search November 20th, 1963, some songs come up. There's a playlist for number one songs from that date in the 60s. So I would guess it'd have 10 videos. Yes, it has 10 videos. An obituary for a gentleman born on November 20th. Performance by the Ferrera Brothers. Today in history for November 20th from the Associated Press. Senator John Kennedy and brothers Edward and Robert, along with James Rowe and John Bailey, outside their summer home. That's it. And then it moves into other things. So that is what life was like. The Buffalo Bills get their fourth win. Next Thursday, stay tuned. Find the Buffalo Bills History Club on Facebook. And then join me on YouTube afterwards, where we will talk about the fifth and final victory, the 60th anniversary of this 1960 inaugural season. Until then, I'm Vinny Vincent. Now, for Retro Review, Saturday, I'll be coming at you with the winner of the poll that's going on right now in the Classic Sports Club. You can go there, join and vote. Click on the announcements to vote. Right now, we'll be talking about, if the voting ended right now, we'd be talking about the 1980 Monday Night Football matchup from Week 7 between the Raiders and Steelers. Terry Bradshaw versus Jim Plunkett. If that wins, I will see you Saturday night, probably around 11 o'clock or so. I'm going to come back. I'm going to stop this video just to have something different. I'm going to come back in a few seconds, and I'm going to talk about esports. So thanks for joining me. I'm Vinny Vincent. God bless America.